Hello, hello, hello. This is Transformational Tuesday. I am so excited to come and talk with you all on Transformational Tuesday. And today marks the first day of my 30-day challenge up until we meet for my sister's keeper women's conference and luncheon. I didn't mention we were having food, so I want to make sure that we get that information in. But for this challenge, I'm going to be talking about the women of the Bible. My co-host may show up anytime, no telling what he's going to do, because he's walking around right now trying to decide what he's going to do. But anyway, the women of the Bible will be the study for the next 30 days till we build up to the women's conference. I'm really excited about that. I would have done this live today, but I could not because something going on with my iPad. I may need to shut it down and redo everything. But let's start where we are right now. Let's start with me telling you about the first lady that we're going to be talking about and giving you a few other tips too along the way. I was looking today to get this study. I'm going to start with somebody I've already done a teaching for at church. We're going to start with Deborah. She's a female prophetess in the Bible, in the book of Judges. She was considered a counselor first. You have somebody that you could go and get advice from. You have that person. There is that person somewhere that will give you sound advice anytime you ask them. So, but before we do this, I talked on the other week about a couple of days ago about being connected to the blessing. And so when I know that I'm on something, God confirms it. Like I told you all before, it was confirmed because I saw Pastor Renee Brown talking about being connected to the blessing. And then I started to think about all the other people that were blessed because they were connected to somebody who was blessed. And I think that my sister's keeper is one of those places that if you get connected, you're going to find your blessing. And so I was looking at today this guy that I follow, and I meant to write his name down. But anyway, I'm going to give the tips, and then I'll the next time I come on, I'll tell you what his name was. And what it did was it confirmed to me what God was saying to me about being connected to the blessing. So that's 3 confirmations that, girl, you're on the right track. Okay. So first thing he said this morning, it was 3 tips. It was, your blessing is in the connection. The reason for my sister's keeper is because we all have connections. And if God is blessing me, if he's directing me, if he's telling me to connect people, get people in the room, then you might find your blessing in that connection. And I must do what God say. When my sister's keeper started, I knew deep down in my heart I had to do what God say, because he was taking me through a transformation. If you see everywhere you look, you're going to see butterflies coming from somewhere. Just like the earrings today, the butterflies are going to be somewhere around Tab, because butterflies signify transformation. And we all are going through something. Like today would be considered Transformational Tuesday on my sister's keeper Facebook page, because we're all constantly transforming. We're going through something. We got something going on that's changing us from moment to moment. And we are all going through something. And the third thing he said, look, here's the word right here. The transition will determine the next half of your life. That's such a true statement. And the reason why I'm saying that is because when I stopped being a cook after 24 years, when the kids moved on and I could make a significant change in my life, what I did, I became a totally opposite of what I was doing, because I knew that I had to be doing something different, because God didn't call me to be a line cook. That was not my calling on my life, and I knew it. And it's just like I know now that he's taking me to another transformation. So, and it's gonna determine the next half of my life. And I'm telling you right now, I'm expecting big things from God because he's expecting big things from me. All right. And one of the best statements he made was, stop blaming other people for your situation. Stop holding on to stuff that happened to you in the past. Stop holding on to things that, you know, if you do it like Jesus did, you're going to forgive and move on. The reason why we hold ourselves back because we hold on to stuff. And we got to stop. Stop that. Let people go. And then beyond that, it'll let you go. I got to remember his name so that I could tell y'all about who he was that gave those tips, okay? Because I don't want to take credit for other people's stuff. Now, the person that I'm talking about today is women of the Bible. We're going to start this series for the next 30 days. You know, my whole goal in starting to do all these things is to be obedient to what God is telling me to do. From this point on, from this video on, I'm going to do my best to be live when I'm doing these teachings and prepared when I'm doing these teaching. I am prepared because I have done this I've done this story already. That's why I decided to start with this one. But the challenge is stop allowing the spirit of procrastination to hold me back from what God has called me to do. I must do what God tells me to do. And that's one of the tips that I got from the guy earlier that I was talking about. Now, the first woman that I want to talk about in the Bible, her name is Deborah. Deborah was, they called her a counselor. She sat under a palm tree, and that's where she held court at. People would come to her. They figured that she was wise, and what did they do? They helped her to solve problems. Now, in the book of Judges, I'm gonna start with Scripture 2:18. In this particular story, what happens is God raised up judges. So we're gonna start with Judges 2:18, and then I'll explain it. Whenever the Lord raised up a judge for them, he was with the judge and he saved them out of the hands of their enemy as long as the judge lived. For the Lord relented because their groanings and under those who oppressed them afflicted them. See, the Israelites were people that God saved over and over and over again. He gave them the land of milk and honey. That only satisfied them for a little while. He allowed them to see the riches of the land. He allowed them to see that he was taking care of them. He brought them out of Egypt, and he allowed them to have all the riches of Egypt. And it still wasn't good enough. Because, you know, if you look at it, the farther we get away from our problem, the farther we get away from God. If everything going smooth, you forget God. You know, he an afterthought. And I would think about that a lot of times. I say, you know what? God is not an afterthought. He should be the first thing you're thinking about in the morning, and then you move on to yourself, thinking for what he's done for you for that morning, and then turn around and do what you need to do for yourself. So if God keeps providing, he keeps waking you up, he keeps have you in your right mind, he allows you to continue to live and be the best you that you can be. But soon as the problem solved and the issues out of the way and you back to your comfort zone, guess what you do? You forget God exists. You go live your life. Oh, I don't need to go to church today because God know my heart. I'm just saying. All right. So let me get back to what I'm supposed to be talking about. Anyway, let me just read this because I wrote this for myself. So I'm just hey, I'm bringing y'all with me. However this come out is how it's going to be, and this is the deal. Okay. So the connection to the blessing today is the 1 month before the MSK conference luncheon. I want to remind all of us of the importance of the place women hold and have held in society. You know, it's time to recognize the very important part we played in the creation and foundation of the world. We have to know our place, our positions, and where we are now, what we should be doing. You have to recognize now that even today, we are not given the proper recognition for everything that we bring to the table. And we understand that. So this is my 30-day challenge. And I will bring you to the women of the Bible and what they did in the history of life that relate to us today. And remember that your blessing, your blessing is in the connection. So I may be just the connection that you need to start, so you can start to figure out whatever your call on your life is. And so Deborah and another lady in this same passage, Jaal, they were connected strangely because of a situation that the Israelites found themselves in. I'm going to do, now Deborah, like I said earlier, she was a judge in the book of Judges, chapter 4. Read all of chapter 4 in Judges. Read the whole story and you find out about this woman of God, these oh, excuse me, these women of valor, these women who stood up when men wouldn't stand up, okay? And she used, and she helped people, and she used her wisdom to help her people, and she used her obedience to God to save them from the hand of King Jabin and the army of Sisera, who was the commander of Jabin's army. Now, Deborah starts with, I read this first passage, 2:18, when they're talking about the judges, and as God appointed judges, he was with that judge, and he allowed that judge to be blessed in the land. He was blessed. But when their last judge passed away, the people went crazy. They just started doing anything they wanted to do. They start worshiping false gods again. Like God had not been with them through the whole time that they were lost in wilderness. Like he didn't feed them. Like he didn't make sure that they had water and make sure that they had covering. And, just took care of them overall. They forgot about what God did. Okay? So in this particular chapter, Deborah rose up, and because the people recognized who she was, her gifts, they recognized how important she was. They decided to make her a judge. Why? Because they were her peers, and what she said to them made sense. She settled disputes in the land, but they did acknowledge that she was married. Okay, let's go to that particular scripture. All right, so we're going to start with Deborah. It's chapter 4, verse 4. Now, Deborah was a prophet. The wife of Labadoth was leading Israel at the time, and she held court under the palm tree of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim. And the Israelites went up to her to have their disputes settled. I just explained all that. They had all their disputes settled with this woman. She sent for Barak. Now it's going into a little bit of detail. See, at this point, God had heard his people crying and complaining because they were oppressed by the king Jabin. And he had a commander, Sisera, and he had 900 chariots. And they had ruled over them 20 years. And they were groaning and complaining. Now they're running back to God to get them from under their mess. Okay? And so God told her, he said, she sent for Barak, son of Abnoam from Kadesh in Naphtali, and said to him, the Lord, the God of Israel, commands you, go take with you 10,000 men of Natalia and Zebulun, and lead them up to Mount Tabor. I will lead Sisera and the commander of Jabin, the commander of Jabin's army, chariots and his troops to the Kishon River and give him into your hands. Now, God sent her to give that message to him, and he told her. Now I'm gonna start just filling in the blanks, because the whole point of this is that we need to recognize the part that we play in the foundation and the history of this world, through spiritual means, through the present day foundation of this world. She delivered the message to Barak, and Barak told her, I'll go if you go with me. And you know what? He was not being obedient. He was not having faith in God to believe that God had told her to come and talk to him and tell him what he said. And because of that, Deborah told him, you will get no glory from this. The Sisera will be delivered into the hands of a woman. She wasn't talking about herself. She was prophesying to him that, you know what, God sent a message through me to you. Instead of you trusting God, you want me to go with you. And yes, I will go with you because I'm obedient to what God is saying, and I trust God. I'm going to do what God asked me to do. And how many times have you not trusted God? When he called you to do something and you tried to bargain with him and back out and back down and not complete the task at hand. I've been there and I've done that, okay? God told him what he was going to do. He wasn't really going to have to fight. God was fighting his battle. And all he had to do was go do the cleanup work and get the glory of killing the leader of Jabin's army, Sisera. But he didn't trust God. He didn't have the faith to believe that he could do it. Deborah said, yeah, I'll go with you. And she did. And the morning of the battle, she woke Barak up and said, did not God tell you to go? And because he had already gone ahead of him and taken care of the army. They were wiped out. No more Sisera. No more Sisera. No more Jabin's army, because God had already done what he said that he was going to do, okay? So Deborah was there. And now we're going to talk about another young lady that plays into the story, because see, her connection is here at the same time. Her blessing is in this connection. Now, her name was Jaal, and she was married to a in-law of Moses. But he had set up his camp on Jabin's area. His house was good with Jabin. He was good with him. Okay? But his wife, Jaal, was with the Israelites. She was with God's people. So in the heat of the army, in the heat of the fight, Sisera runs and leaves his chariot, because a chariot was made out of all this heavy iron and stuff. So when it rained and stuff, they got weighed down, bogged down, and stuck in the mud. That's what made the army not strong enough to be able to fight this battle that they were facing right then. So because God had told them what he was going to do, the army was defeated, wiped out, all except for that one man that ran. He ran to the home of Jaal and her husband. So when he got to her, he knew that household was good with King Jabin. And so what she did was he walked to the tent and he said, I'll get me some water. And if any man comes and asks you if a man is here, you tell them no. But what she gave him was milk. And if you know anything about milk, if you drink warm milk, some people, I don't like warm milk, but some people know if you drink warm milk, it's supposed to make you sleepy. So he drank warm milk. He asked her for water, but she gave him milk. Okay? When she gave him the milk, he drifted off to sleep. And when he drifted off to sleep, she took a spike from a tent and slammed it into his temple and killed him. Now, I left this part out, but I'm going to go back to it. In this day of the Bible, It was a disgrace for a woman to take your life. They did not want to have it known that a woman killed a man. And Jaal killed this man. So when Barak showed up at her tent, he asked her, "Have you seen any man around here?" He said, "Come." She said, "Come, my lord, come, my lord. Yeah, I have just the man that you are looking for. I know just where he is." And when Barak walked in, he saw Sisera on the floor dead, killed by a woman. Because Deborah had already prophesied to him and told him, "You won't get any glory. You won't get any glory for this because you didn't trust God. You wouldn't move unless I moved. But you won't get any glory for this battle. It's going to be that he was going to be delivered into a woman's hand." And Jael was that woman. She fulfilled her purpose, but she was connected because she loved God's people. She had decided, even though her husband was good with Jabin, the king, she was good with God's people. She was connected to the blessing. Okay? So we have to remember that if God is telling you to do something, if he's giving you ideas and situations and things that you need to do, then you need to be doing what God says to do. Be obedient and stop sitting on your gifts. And I think that this woman Deborah, the prophet, she was obedient to God. She took the message to the man. I have to say, these were women of valor. At that time, the men were weak. They didn't want to fight. They didn't have an army together. They were horrified of even the thought of a fight. They didn't even have a knife to fight with. Sisera ran over them for 20 years, just did them anything. And finally, God heard them constantly crying out, and he brought them back out from under their oppressor again. He proven himself over and over and over again. And I know that you may be sitting on your sideline saying, "Yeah, I've been down, everything good right now." But I'm telling you, comfort is only for a little while. But God take us through things so that we will learn to be better people, to do the right thing, help other folks. And if you have a gift that you're sitting on, my Sister's Keeper event is September 16th. We're going to come back to this every day, every time. It costs $150. We're having presenters there telling you how to get to your next, if that's what you want to do. You could be in a transition right now and don't know what to do next. But if you just hold on, walk in the room, decide that your connection is right here. Your blessing or your connection is in the room. Why would I go to something like this? Some might come just to support me. But I still believe if you're there that you're supposed to be there. Deborah was a prophet. She relayed a message to Barak. Barak gave her an answer that wasn't pleasing to God. God allowed Jaal to do what Barak should have done, because he had to move from where he was to get his blessing. He did move, but he put a stipulation on it. And every time you put a stipulation on God, every time you decide that you're giving God an ultimatum to do what he's called you to do, then he has to move on to somebody else. Your faith has to be, you have to have enough faith to answer the call. When God gives you an assignment and he tells you to do something, you have to have enough faith to answer the call. Deborah had the faith to answer the call. And out of all those people, you know, after the battle was won and all the army was dead and Jabin was destroyed in the process as well, their oppressor was destroyed, she wrote a song. She was the only woman that wrote a song in the Bible. But she didn't praise herself. She praised God. And if you go to that next chapter, you'll see the song that she wrote. And the whole time she was praising God and giving him glory and gratitude and thanks. And that's what we have to do. We have to give God glory, gratitude, and thanks. And he's going to continue to bless us. He's going to continue to lead us in faith. He's going to continue to give you everything you need because he gave it to you when you got here. So, September the 16th, your blessing is in the room. Get connected. Why are we here now talking about this right now? Because it's so important that you decide that you're important enough to get connected. So we're going to start this series, y'all. And y'all, I need y'all praying for me, honestly, because today I almost pushed it all the way off instead of making the video. I was sitting in there going like, I'll just do it tomorrow. My co-host just let y'all know he here. But anyway, this is the beginning of our Women of the Bible study, and we're gonna have it all the way up for the next 30 days. So thank you so much. I gotta go. I got 2 people calling me. I got this dog yapping, and I got the man calling me at the back. So I gotta go, y'all. I love y'all so much. Y'all have a fantastic evening.